If you have ever looked at a map of Tokyo's train system before your first trip, you have probably had the same reaction that I did. There's no way I'm going to figure this out. Different train companies, different colored lines, hundreds of stations, giant stations like Shinjuku and Tokyo Station with what feels like endless exits. Before I visited Japan for the first time, the train system was probably the thing that I was the most worried about. I was afraid of boarding the wrong train, getting lost, missing my stop, or somehow ending up on the opposite side of Tokyo. And honestly, I completely understand why so many first time visitors feel exactly the same way. But after traveling around Japan for years, I've realized something. The train system isn't actually difficult, it just looks intimidating at first. And once you understand a few simple ideas, everything begins to feel easier. I think the biggest mistake which I made before my first trip was believing that I had to understand Japan's entire train network. I was looking at these huge maps and thinking that I had to memorize every single line and every single station. But after spending time in Japan, I realized something surprisingly simple. You don't have to understand the whole train network. You only need to understand your next train. That's it. Every journey is just one small decision at a time. Which station am I going to? Which platform do I need? Which train should I board? Once that train arrives, you have already solved most of the problem. Then you simply repeat the process for the next part of your journey. Looking back, I think I made the train system seem much bigger in my head than it really was. Once I stopped trying to understand everything at once, traveling around Japan became surprisingly straightforward. Now that we have gotten rid of some of the initial fear, let's simplify Japan's train system. One thing that confused me before my first trip was seeing so many different train names: JR, Tokyo Metro, Toei Subway, KO, Tokyo, Yuri Kamome, Shinkansen. It felt like every train belonged to a different company, but in reality, you can think of them as four main categories. The first is JR, or Japan Rail. These are some of the most well-known train lines in Japan, including the famous Yamanote Line in Tokyo. They are fantastic for getting around major parts of the city and connecting different regions. The second is the metro or subway systems. In Tokyo, that's mainly Tokyo Metro and Toei Subway. These trains fill in the gaps between the JR lines and often take you much closer to your destination. The third category is private railways. Companies like Keio, Tokyo, Odakyu, Seibu, Keisei, and even Yuri Kamome all fall into this group. Don't let the word private worry you. As a passenger, they work almost exactly the same way. You simply tap in, board the train, and follow Google Maps. The only difference is which company operates that particular route. Finally, there's the Shinkansen. This isn't for traveling around a city. It's for traveling between cities like Tokyo to Kyoto, Osaka, or Sendai. And honestly, once you realize there are really just these four categories, the whole train system suddenly feels much less intimidating. If I could give every first time visitor to Tokyo just one piece of advice, it would be this: learn the Yamanote Line. Seriously, it was probably the single most useful thing which I discovered. The Yamanote Line is a circular JR line that connects many of Tokyo's most popular areas, such as Shinjuku, Shibuya, Ueno, Tokyo Station, Shinagawa, Akihabara, and many more. Once I understood this one line, Tokyo suddenly became much easier to understand. Instead of feeling like dozens of disconnected stations, it became one big loop with familiar places along the way. Even today, whenever I'm staying somewhere new in Tokyo, I naturally think, how far is it from the Yamanote line? Because if I'm close to the Yamanote line, I know that I can get to almost anywhere without too much trouble. Of course, you might still use the metro and private railways, but having the Yamanote Line as your mental anchor makes navigating Tokyo much less overwhelming. If you are only going to remember one train line from this entire video, make it this one. Now, let us talk about one of my favorite things about traveling in Japan. And honestly, I wish more countries had something like this. It's called a Suica card. If you have never heard of it before, don't worry. Think of it as a rechargeable travel card. Instead of buying a ticket every single time you take a train, you simply tap your card when you enter the station and tap it again when you leave. That's it. The correct fare is automatically deducted. But what surprised me wasn't just how easy it was to use, it was how useful it became outside the train station as well. I started using my Suica at convenience stores, vending machines, some restaurants, lockers, and even a few shops. It slowly became my everyday payment card while I was in Japan. Looking back, I think Suica removes so much unnecessary friction from traveling. There's no need to figure out ticket prices every time. No need to buy paper tickets. No need to worry about having the exact amount of cash ready. You simply tap and keep moving. It's one of those small things that makes traveling around Japan feel surprisingly effortless. If you are visiting Japan, I would absolutely recommend getting a Suica or Pasmo card. It's one of the best travel purchases that you will make. So, if I don't memorize train lines and I don't memorize station maps, how do I actually get around Japan? Honestly, my process is incredibly simple. Every time I want to go somewhere, I open Google Maps. I type in my destination. Google Maps tells me which train to take, which platform to go to, whether I have to transfer, and approximately what time I will arrive. That's genuinely how I travel around Japan almost every single day. Sometimes, if I'm planning a longer journey or want to compare routes, I will also check Navitime. It's another excellent app that many people in Japan use, and it provides detailed train information. But most of the time, Google Maps is already more than enough. Once I arrive at the station, I simply follow the station signs. Japanese stations are generally very well signposted. Platforms are clearly numbered. Train lines are color coded. Station names are usually written in both Japanese and English. If Google Maps tells me to transfer, I don't panic. I just follow the signs for the next line. One platform at a time. One train at a time. Looking back, I realized I spent so much time worrying about navigating Japan before my first trip. But once I was actually there, the process felt very natural. You don't need to think 5 steps ahead. You only need to know what to do next. And that's probably the biggest lesson Japanese trains have taught me. Now, even after traveling around Japan for years, I still make mistakes sometimes. And I actually think that's an important thing to say because it's very easy to look at experienced travelers and assume that they never get lost. But that is definitely not true. I've boarded trains going in the wrong direction. I've accidentally walked out of the wrong station exit. I've missed my stop because I was too busy looking out of the window. I've taken a rapid train when I meant to take a local train. And yes, I've had moments where I look at Google Maps and thought to myself, wait, where am I? But here's the thing, none of these mistakes ever ruin my trip. At most, they usually cost me a few extra minutes. Sometimes, I would simply get off at the next station, cross over to the opposite platform, and board the correct train. Other times, I would laugh at myself, enjoy the unexpected walk, and continue with my day. Looking back, I realized that I had been treating getting lost like it would be a disaster, but in reality, it's just part of traveling. And honestly, some of my favorite times in Japan happened because I accidentally ended up somewhere which I hadn't planned to visit. So if you make a mistake on your first trip, don't panic. It happens to everybody. And even now, it still happens to me occasionally. And then, something really interesting happens. One day, you stop thinking about the trains. You tap your Suica card without even thinking. You glance at Google Maps for a few seconds. You follow the station signs almost instinctively. Before you know it, You are changing trains confidently, exploring new neighborhoods, taking day trips to places that you have never been before. And that's when I realized something. The train system wasn't getting simpler. I was simply becoming more familiar with it. The thing that once looked impossible had quietly become routine. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about traveling in Japan. The train stopped feeling like an obstacle and start feeling like freedom. Suddenly, the whole country feels connected. Tokyo no longer feels like an overwhelming city. It starts feeling like a collection of neighborhoods that are all within easy reach. A quick train ride to Akihabara, another to Ueno, maybe an afternoon in Yokohama, or a spontaneous day trip to Kamakura. Once the train stopped feeling scary, Japan suddenly feels much smaller, and that's an incredibly satisfying feeling. Looking back now, I honestly can't imagine traveling around Japan any other way. So, after traveling around Japan for many years, what advice would I give somebody taking Japanese trains for the very first time? First, trust Google Maps. Seriously, it's probably the single most useful travel companion that you will have. It tells you which train to take, when it leaves, where to transfer, and often even which platform to head to. Second, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Almost everyone boards the wrong train or walks out of the wrong station exit at some point. It's completely normal. Usually, the solution is simple. Get off at the next station, cross over to the opposite platform, and continue your journey. Third, give yourself a little extra time, especially on your first day. Not because the trains are difficult, but because you naturally spend a few extra minutes looking around and getting your bearings. Once you have used the system a few times, you'll probably move through stations much more confidently. Fourth, get a Suica or Pasmo card if you can. It makes traveling so much easier. And finally, remember that millions of people use Japan's trains every single day. Most of them are not train experts. They are simply people going about their everyday lives. And before long, you'll be doing exactly the same. Looking back now, I honestly think I spent far too much time worrying about Japanese trains before my first trip. I imagined getting lost, missing trains, not understanding the signs, or somehow ending up somewhere completely different from where I intended to go. But once I actually arrived in Japan, I realized that the train system wasn't trying to confuse me. It was actually designed to help millions of people move about efficiently every single day. And after just a short period of time, something changed. I stopped worrying about the trains and began thinking about where I wanted to go, whether that was Akihabara, Ueno, Yokohama, Kamakura, or somewhere I had never visited before. The trains quietly became part of the adventure instead of something standing in the way of it. So, if you are planning your first trip to Japan and the train system feels intimidating, I hope this video has helped you to feel just a little bit more confident. Because honestly, it's much easier than it looks. And once you become comfortable using the trains, an entire country opens up to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing first trip to Japan. I will see you in the next video.